something smart to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Tuesday, the 3rd of March, 2026. And of course, we are on 101.1 FM radio, but you can also get us at our Facebook Live feed. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. We are also available on YouTube as well as our website, rcistlucia.com. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also reach us on our WhatsApp number. That is 284-6001. Again, 284-6001. I look back in time on this day, and we go back to the year 1574. The Indian Mughal Emperor Akbar defeated the Bengali army at the Battle of Turakhoi. In the year 1857, the Second Opium War saw France and the United Kingdom declare war on China. 1861, on this day, Alexander II, Tsar of Russia, signed the Emancipation Manifesto, freeing serfs and granting them full rights as free citizens. 1887, on this day, Anne Sullivan began teaching 6-year-old blind deaf Helen Keller. In 1917, the first major strike of the Russian February Revolution started at the giant Putilov factory in Petrograd. 1939, Mahatma Gandhi began a fast in Bombay to protest against autocratic rule in India. 1943, on this day, saw the Battle of the Bismarck Sea. Australian and American air forces devastated a Japanese Navy convoy. And in 1991, on this day, Los Angeles police officers severely beat motorist Rodney King. The beating famously captured on amateur video and later led to riots when the police officers were acquitted. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
Well, of course, we are still in the follow and the aftermath of what occurred over in Iran and what continues to play out in the Middle East and West Asia right now. And it appears to be an all-out regional war affecting many countries, not just the likely victims of Iran and Israel. It has certainly impacted a number of other countries due to Iranian retaliatory strikes, and many of these strikes, of course, on countries that are home to United States air bases and other military installations. Bahrain, for example, one of those countries where one of the U.S. naval fleets is in fact centered, but not the only one. And even in places like Kuwait, that country which through U.S. efforts back in Operation Desert Storm back in the early 1990s, liberated from the invasion of Iraq, very long-standing friend of the United States. Well, even there, the realities of war set in, where U.S. planes being taken down due to friendly fire, very advanced anti-aircraft systems, defense systems in many of these countries, including Kuwait, And so effectively 3 U.S. planes, in fact, being hit by those air defense systems in Kuwait, not intentionally, but certainly giving the indication of how tenuous it is and difficult it is to be engaging in such military operations in such a highly militarized area that is the Middle East. We have, of course, seen many different targets, nuclear facilities being targeted, and the Iranians accusing their attackers of taking and targeting, what is civilian nuclear facilities, and reports being made to the International Atomic Energy Agency in that regard. Concerns also being raised over other targets, in particular a school where nearly 120 or so persons have been killed, including children, of course. Many other issues at play. So it is certainly not just military targets that persons are looking at and can think confidently that this is not impacting the lives of many. It is. And certainly across the Persian Gulf, into many other of these cities, whether it might be Doha, whether it might be Dubai, Sharjah, they are all facing issues. Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, also being impacted. And so it is certainly perhaps not what was being anticipated. And we have actually seemed to have been witnessing a bit of a change in the narrative coming out of the United States. Originally, we were being told that this was going to lead to regime change, that many of the leaders within Iran and the leadership, Revolutionary Guard leadership, Ministry of Defense, of course, the Ayatollah himself, being killed in those Saturday strikes and following military activity in Iran. That certainly seems not to have kept back the retaliatory effort from Iran. And so it is certainly playing out to be something perhaps a lot more than what was expected in terms of attacks from that country. And the tone from U.S. authorities now, even from the likes of Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, suggesting that their principal concerns were to attack Iran's ballistic missile capabilities, as well as their ability to put out their navy and to engage in maritime efforts, like, for example, blocking the Strait of Hormuz. And so we have seen a lot of those targets by U.S. Air forces and naval forces taking on those targets. But it certainly was not the original dialogue, and we're now hearing, of course, that it's going to be left up to the people of Iran to take on regime change. All that is happening, of course, and already the impacts are being felt in some parts of the world, and many countries are certainly holding their breath and seeing what can come of this ongoing debacle, which is causing quite a lot of mayhem and havoc in the Western Asian region. Lots of alliances being called upon, suggestions even that India may have been playing a role, a distractionary role in this entire endeavor. And of course, so many different chess pieces at play. India, of course, not a good friend of Pakistan, but a friend of the Taliban, seemingly of late. In Afghanistan, causing for Taliban incursions and actions on the western border of Pakistan, so as to prevent the Pakistanis from entering and providing military and intelligence support to Iran, and all of that was being suggested as being part of this massive operation against Iran at this point in time. And of course, other players who may very well be providing some level of support to Iran, the likes of Russia, the likes of China, making their voices known at the level of the United Nations Security Council. Of course, as I said, lots of particular interest in respect of what could come of this, and small island developing states, small states on a whole, quite often have very limited power, certainly no real military power or strength, and have to watch how these matters play out. Singapore, of course, very wealthy small state in Asia that has quite often been hailed as a remarkable success story. They too have been looking at what the outcome is. We have a short clip of the former president, former leader of Singapore. He, in fact, is currently the senior minister in the government, former President Lee. Let's take a listen to how he has surmised this entire matter. Lee Hsien Loong.
Up. The U.S. has assembled a huge military force in the Middle East, aircraft carriers, destroyers, missiles, defenses, missile attack weapons. And today, Israel and the U.S. together attacked Iran jointly. The war has begun. Iran has struck back cities, targets across the Middle East. Israel itself, Doha, Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE. This is going to affect energy prices and impact countries far away from the Middle East, like Singapore. And you can see when a war will start, it is very hard to tell how the war will end. The overall climate of uncertainty created by these dramatic twists and turns will dampen the global climate for trade and investment, for cooperation and prosperity, because businesses and companies will find it impossible to plan for what will happen tomorrow, what they can rely on, where they can safely invest, what they should do in order to make sure that the company will be okay day after tomorrow. And this is going to affect us too, as a small and open economy reliant on global trade and investments. So we can't tell what will happen in the world, we can't help what will happen in the world, but we can make sure that within Singapore we prepare ourselves and we make the best of whatever situation comes and meets us.
And that there, the former president of Singapore, making a very important point that we really quite often have no idea as to how this is in fact going to play out. And that, of course, makes for great levels of unpredictability. Uncertainty, of course, is not the friend of investment and economic growth. In situations like that, people tend to hold back. They want to wait. They want to see how things are all going to play out. Many have suggested, of course, that in this lottery of sorts that Mrs. Trump and Netanyahu have opened up, this could go many different ways. One side of it, of course, could be that if to their benefit, perhaps they might be able to achieve some level of a shift in the position of the Iranian regime. Maybe the leaders who may come next may not be as hardlined and might be a little bit more open to economic cooperation with the West, and maybe it could be that it would allow for greater economic opportunities for these Western countries. In the ideal regime change, probably would be what they would like to see, and then meaning that the additional capacity that exists in terms of oil production in Iran could then be ramped up and could then lead to a reduction in global oil prices. And of course, to the benefit of the United States and to the chagrin of China, which currently has a lot of concessionary oil arrangements with Iran. Of course, it can go the other way as well. And that could be significant disruptions in the logistics and trade of oil and gas coming out of the Middle East, coming out of the Persian Gulf, having that knock-on impact on industry and the economy globally. And of course, the Middle East is that energy hotspot of the world. It is where vast quantities of oil and gas exist. Put together, when you look at Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, the UAE, Oman, all of these countries, very, very oil wealthy, oil rich. And so they, of course, if they are going to be impacted by a prolonged form of retaliation and war that it might end up being, that has definite repercussions globally, and certainly not what one may want to see. Of course, the other risk too is that even if you end up with a potential civil war situation in Iran, does that end up looking like another case of Iraq, which was for a very long time in this very difficult and fractious situation? Lots of different groups looking to push for their own agendas, and we saw that in Iraq. We saw the rise of ISIS and Islamic State. We saw the Kurds in the north looking to get greater control. We saw quite a lot of confusion there. Of course, we can only have to look across to what exists in Syria, another area of great levels of uncertainty, and even with, of course, a significant regime change there, still unclear as to how all is going to pan out in that region. And, of course, in other parts where we've seen these types of activities. Libya, for example, after Gaddafi, still a country that has not been able to shine as one would expect, given its tremendous amount of resources as well. So clearly, the name of the game is oil, and it is definitely playing out in this in a number of these engagements that we are seeing by the United States. Of course, the Israelis have their own interest in this entire matter. Many, of course, have pointed out that for Mr. Netanyahu to continue in power, he himself needs to continue with war. And, of course, we've seen what has occurred in the case of Gaza. And his, of course, next best enemy in all of this, of course, and he may even, in fact, argue his principal enemy has been that of Iran. They have been the ones who have been leading and supporting proxy wars. They've been the ones who have been most ardently behind the cause of the Palestinian people. And it would be very interesting to see how that pans out in that case as well. But he politically still in a very, very precarious situation. He was in a precarious situation in October of 2023 when we saw, of course, on the anniversary of Yom Kippur and what occurred with those Gazan attacks into Israel, and what has led to the devastation of the Gaza Strip today. And of course, he has his own agenda. And we all, of course, know that Mr. Trump may have his own agenda as well. Where these agendas align, of course, is where you may find a common purpose. And they have, of course, come together to bring on this attack on Iran, which many say, of course, will not necessarily bring around regime change. The likelihood that regime change can come by airstrikes has been pointed out in the past is very low. Yes, you may end up taking out some of the people on the top, but chances are you're not going to be able to get everybody in the system. And with a country like Iran, we're speaking of a 90 million person population. It is a very large country. We're talking about a country that, in terms of population, is 3 times the size of a Venezuela, and far more highly militarized than Venezuela as well. And so within all of that context, we are certainly dealing with a very different situation at play right about now. Of course, as I said, it does appear again that energy remains this major driving force in terms of the current approach of U.S. foreign policy. And it's fair to say, because we're not seeing any major attacks on aggression on the likes of North Korea. North Korea, a country that has apparently been able to develop a nuclear warhead or nuclear missile. It's been very much isolationist for a very long time. We're not seeing any kind of major efforts at play in terms of North Korea. And they seem to be perhaps pretty secure in their current state of situation, state of play right about now. But and Iran, of course, well, that's one where I suppose if you can unlock that key, the possibilities for wealth creation might be there for many an American oil company or investment company looking at opportunities for that country. We've seen very similarly, of course, that happened in Iraq, and a fair bit of American investment going into establishing and bringing back production, so that today Iraq is in fact producing more oil than Iran. That may very well easily flip depending on the directions that things go, as we have to see it. But we don't know. And so within that environment, of course, the big questions are for a small island developing state, and for small countries like ours, and for countries in the South in general, the directions that we must head are all certainly suggesting that we've got to continue taking our sovereignty and security very seriously. And by that, not necessarily militarily secure, although that clearly is what matters these days, but the matter of energy security, the matter of food security, water security, those aspects becoming ever more critical in this current state of play. In terms of tourism, of course, which is our leading industry, it too could go in 2 directions. Generally speaking, of course, we've seen the impacts it's having right now in terms of the attacks on airports that have been going on. Flight patterns have completely changed. The Dubai International Airport, a major hub for movement between Asia and Europe and elsewhere. Major players, Emirates and other airlines out of that region. Clearly, they, of course, are facing a very difficult time because of this war and this kind of disruption. and has certainly led to immediate delays and impact of travel. Of course, the West Indies cricket team itself falling prey to this reality. And so it may happen that this can continue for a long time, for a while to come. And of course, if that is the case, certainly places a destination like Dubai, a destination like the Middle East, which has been trying to pivot away from dependence on oil fields to creating places of leisure and beach resorts and places for people to have a good time. Those are going to be seen as pretty risky investments moving forward. Is that good for the Caribbean? Quite possibly. It could very well mean that others are going to be looking to look elsewhere for investment opportunities. They may be looking for other areas to pivot towards. And it may, however, also have an impact globally in that people simply want to stay home a little bit longer or more and not necessarily want to take that next family vacation or honeymoon to a tropical island. And so therein lies that risk. And so certainly from the perspective of our tourism sector, one certainly cannot be passive about these current situations. It certainly requires some very active movement in the tourism market so as to ensure that we can see perhaps even a benefit from what is actually occurring right now, and to ensure that, in fact, it does not lead to a loss of numbers, a loss of economic activity right here in the Caribbean and in St. Lucia. That's our dish of the day. We'll take in our weather report at this time.
This has been the Daily Dish.
Island style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and thin sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality price, service choice. It's all an Island style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, for the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours, the winds will be blowing from the east near 24 miles per hour or 39 kilometers per hour with occasional gusts. The weather fair, hazy and windy, occasionally becoming cloudy with scattered light to moderate showers. And there is an advisory in heavy rains that small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise extreme caution due to brisk winds, rough seas, and reduced visibility. The forecast for the Les Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy, hazy and breezy with scattered showers. And the weather summary, the Atlantic high pressure system will continue to dominate the weather pattern across the Eastern Caribbean. Moderate to brisk easterly winds and locally rough seas will prevail during a few days. Also, patches of low-level clouds drifting with the wind flow will cause some showers over the islands during the next 24 hours. And this has been your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style.
Everything sets pieces and ground. Everything you need to sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And we've got about 22 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. And the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Our WhatsApp number, it is 284-6001. Again, 284-6001. And of course, the world continuing to observe how things progress with respect to the current conflict, current war, one may say, although a war has not been, I think, declared formally on any side. And that has been part of the challenge of what we've been seeing from a legal perspective. And many a time, even in the United States of America, the issues that are at play and the legality of what is going on has been brought into question. We have seen action being taken, and in this instance, the argument by the United States is that it's a preemptive action to prevent the possibility of an attack by Iran. Now, of course, that does not seem to be, and in fact, in many instances, we have seen that this is perhaps not what the agenda was. Effectively, we have seen a deliberate targeting of officials, almost sort of an assassination run, targeting of key people and not necessarily facilities or military bases or defense or attack systems, or in as much as we've of course seen some of that happening, but we've been seeing a lot more than that. A lot of very deliberate targeting of people right up in the front of the efforts here in the case of Iran and what is playing out right about now. Of course, lots of different sentiments and people looking at what the options are. And I think we do have a one such clip that is available. And it is about a piece coming out of a UK source, an opinion coming right from, I think it's Sky News. Let's take in a listen to this one.
Mark is here with me, our defence and security analyst, to break down some of the latest assessments of this. Michael, just stepping back from it all, the action we saw 48 hours ago, what stands out to you as you've analysed it more, and the ability to take out the Ayatollah with no boots on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, we were speculating at the time when these attacks began on Saturday morning that the timing seems curious. And Sean Bell, our other analyst, he and I were talking about this and saying that it was so late in the day, given that Tehran is 3.5 hours ahead of London, and we heard about it at 6 in the morning, so 9:30, 10 o'clock in Tehran. And we said that was not the ideal time to launch attacks of this sort. So they must have had eyes on a target and have gone for the target early. And that now seems to be, in the last 12 hours, seems to have been confirmed in the US, that Israeli intelligence got an idea that the Ayatollah and a lot of his staff were back in the compound, which is extraordinarily foolish of them, although the compound, it goes very deep. And they went back into the compound, I assume on the assumption that as the Americans hadn't attacked overnight, they were safe for at least another 24 hours. And the Israelis got wind of the target. said to the Americans, it seems, we want to go early. And the Americans said, OK, go. So the whole attack went in, it looks, maybe 24 hours earlier than they had planned, maybe even 48 hours earlier than they planned. But it shows the value of Israeli intelligence is very, very good. And they had 3 sites, it seems, that they had good information where people were, and they went for them. And as we saw from the pictures, they completely devastated the compound in which the Ayatollah was there, and they killed a lot of people in there.
What do you make of the breadth of the Iranian response, perhaps not the successful depth of it?
Breadth is clear. I mean, the Iranians have no choice in one sense. From a military point of view, they've got, I mean, some said they had about 2,000 missiles. I've seen some reports they have maybe up to 4,000 ballistic missiles. That might be a bit over the top, but they've certainly got some thousands of ballistic missiles. The military logic for them is to use them or lose them, because they know Israeli intelligence is very good and American intelligence is very good at watching what's going on. If they hold those missiles back for another 2 or 3 weeks, they might well lose them. So the tendency is to say, OK, we have been attacked in a total sense. The American president has said he's trying to destroy the government of Iran. That is war. If you're trying to destroy a foreign government, that's war. If you're trying to destroy people, that's genocide. But if you're trying to destroy a government, that's war. So they've declared war on us. We must use what we've got while we've still got it. And the Iranians have done what they said they would do, which is to attack bases. And they're going for anything they can find, which is American, Israeli or allied countries. And indeed, I mean, some of this stuff will affect civilians, because if you attack bases, some of your drones and missiles will be brought down and they're going to fall somewhere. So there's going to be some collateral damage and deaths through debris.
Talk to me about what resilience Iran has under the surface. How damaged will they be by so many of the key leadership members going versus having people to step into the fold? Very good point. Politically, they've got a lot of resilience. So the leadership might have been rocked by this, undoubtedly, but Larijani, who is designated as the interim successor, Larijani has said, OK, we've got a council of 3 who are making decisions. And it will take a while for the Iranians to make clear decisions again. The fact that they attacked Duqm in Oman, they said, we didn't intend to do that because the Omanis are a friend. They've been negotiating, and Duqm is a port, very important container port, and they attacked it. And they said, well, that was kind of on autopilot. We didn't mean to do that. So there is a degree of chaos, you would imagine, at the top. But the top is still there. The Republican Guard are about 200 and 220,000 people, all armed and fairly dedicated. Below that, there's the Basij, who are the militia that go down to the lowest possible levels in Iranian society. These are the people who will come out on the streets and shoot anyone that they think looks like a demonstrator. There's like 600,000 of them. And then there's an army of about 800,000, something like that. Now, one of the key questions is, what will the army do? We know what the Republican Guard will do, and the Basij would want to do. They want to preserve their power and the influence. What does the army do? Will they sit on their hands? Will they go in with loyalty to the regime now that it's being attacked? Or would they, if demonstrators come out onto the streets, would the army try to defend the demonstrators? If that were the case, then we're looking at some sort of civil war. But in political terms, there is real depth in the Islamic Republic's control of society. So there is some depth there. Less economic depth. And the Americans are going for they've hit Carl Island, for instance, they've hit Abadan, the transit points, but they're not hitting the energy production of Iran at the moment. That would be a really big step. If they went for Iran's energy production, then the Iranians, I think, would then try and hit lots of energy sources elsewhere in the region. 1 minute left, Michael. What about who Iran have targeted in response, and how does that change regional opinion of Iran? It's changing it a bit. They've gone for all Gulf states, so they hit, I think, seven sovereign countries now, one by mistake. I mean, they're a paper tiger in the sense that nothing they do does a whole lot of damage, but it's political expression. And any paper tiger can get lucky. So they're hoping to get lucky against the Americans or the Israelis. They are creating a sort of a front against them, but that's not the same as a front that fully agrees with what the United States and Israel are doing. So I think the Gulf states, I mean, and the Saudis are taking a big role now, saying to all their Gulf neighbours, even the UAE that haven't got along with for a long time, you know, we're looking after you. So the Saudis are trying to emerge here as they are a Gulf superpower, but a Gulf protector of the others. I think we'll see a different sort of Gulf
arising out of this. But they don't want Iran to collapse. They don't want the chaos that will go with it. I mean, there's 5 million Pakistanis around the Gulf. And Pakistan, people have been killed in Karachi, in demonstrations in Karachi over what is happening in the Gulf.
Michael,
Big
pleasure as always.
regional implications.
Thanks so much. Good to see you, Michael Clark. Much more coverage after this short break when Mornings returns.
Of course, there a sense of some of the issues that are at play in respect of the current issues, the war that is ongoing right now in Iran. And, of course, as we are witnessing the issues of the economic infrastructure not being targeted right now. And one can very well understand why, because that may very well be the prize that many are looking for in any case or in any event. So at least for the time being, that is not being taken out. It was a very different situation, one could say, in respect of the Iraq war, where we saw, in fact, some level of targeting of not just Iraq's defense, but also its capabilities as well, economic and industrial capabilities. That is quite often something that countries do in a full-out, long-scale war to prevent vehicles and planes from being refueled, and so therefore you want to be able to slow them down in that way. But certainly not at the moment, not part of the plan, it would appear, in respect of this undertaking. One thing's perhaps very clearly not going to happen for the time being. There is no likelihood that there's going to be any overt men on the ground, boots on the ground, invasion style type of warfare in the case of Iran. For one, in the Iraq-Kuwait Gulf War, different circumstances. Of course, you had a country that was in fact invaded, and so in trying to liberate that country, there would have been a need for physical men to be brought in and to recapture such a space and to rout them out. But even in the case of invading and taking control of Iraq, that too is very different. The terrain too, very, very different. Iraq, very flat country for the most part along the Tigris-Euphrates river valley, river plain region. Much easier in terms of that type of approach. Iran, very, very different. Very mountainous, very elevated. A pretty difficult country to bring on that form of an attack. Most of the population living in the elevated regions of the country as well, not along the coastline, not along any easily targeted area. Tehran, for example, in the far north of Iran, much closer to the Caspian Sea than it is to the Persian Gulf. Very difficult scenarios to contemplate any kind of invasionary force into that country. And so that certainly does not lend itself to any likelihood of such. The style of approach, of course, that we have been seeing has been through the use of intelligence systems, spies, effectively, if you want to think of it that way, but of course surveillance and monitoring systems as well. And of course we've heard that some of the world's best in this regard have been Israel, and they have been able to infiltrate and to buy and influence and create a lot of human intelligence in many institutions. And of course, this is part of what is unfolding right now in the Iranian hierarchy. Many people are looking at each other and wondering Who is the spy amongst them? Who are the who's really working for Israel? Who's really on the side of the Americans in this current circumstance? I think in one instance, I understand one of the heads of one of the military, the militias, the forces, the Quds Force, I think has been, in fact, been detained with the suspicion of, in fact, being just a little bit too lucky in being able to escape death on so many different occasions. Possibility that, in fact, he is not really on the Iranian side. And so there is a lot of that going on, and that obviously poses a lot of challenges in terms of the approach. That is what we're seeing right now, and the point that was being made by the former Defense Minister, Mr. Clark, in that interview, that the approach of Iran, therefore, is to just use everything that they have at this point in time and to let it all out. And so, because they're not sure in a very long-run approach what is, in fact, going to come of it, these hidden bunkers may very well be found eventually and identified through these intelligence systems of Mossad, of the CIA, and will become targets. And so this is exactly what is at play. It's a battle of time. It's a battle of intelligence at play right about now, and it certainly is very, very interesting. Now, of course, the other question marks that are going to come of it, what kind of support or who would probably and possibly come to the aid of this Islamic Republic, and how this may very well pan out more long term. Of course, we are also dealing with the risks of terrorism. We have seen this in play out in many ways over the years. The likes of an Al-Qaeda, the likes of other of these types of groups, Hezbollah, engaging in terrorism, in the use of human beings, and quote-unquote creating martyrs of them. Now, of course, what we've seen in the case of this attack is that here was a gentleman, or a man, one can say, the leader of a country who was probably in the twilight of his years, and he, in some respects, has now been valorized in the minds of others as a martyr. And so there is that risk that these types of actions invariably fuel hysteria, more extremism, and that is, of course, a real risk that can potentially play out in the same way that some suggest that there are plants within Iran, and some may say that Iran may very well have plants, and others may have similar plants in the Western world as well. And so that is, of course, something that one has to be very wary of, and the potential that may lead to greater levels of terror and terrorism in places where we would not expect them. And that, too, is a major risk. It could very well mean, in such circumstances, that air travel might become a little bit challenged if that is the case. So we certainly have to be very, very wary of these types of situations as they pan out. So that's another very, very interesting possibility that we will have to see. Now, as to whether the likes of a China is going to be a lot more openly supportive of the Islamic Republic, well, I don't know. We've heard, of course, that there has been support in some areas over the years, but you never know with these types of conflicts. Sometimes you even see support coming in. There is a border, for example, between Pakistan and Iran on its eastern side, and the possibilities of that becoming a major corridor for resupplying, for troops moving in, for support being provided. That's a very real risk that could potentially play out as well. And so in terms of that entire region, it certainly is something that could escalate to be a far more complex situation depending on the level of support and that Iran might very well be able to muster up. Its approach thus far, hitting out at everybody, may not necessarily make a lot of friends for it, but maybe the intention there to simply get some kind of political interest, I suppose, in this matter as it pans out. So that's probably going to be our program for today. We did have another clip that we wanted to take in, but it's perhaps a little too long to be able to get into at this time. So we do hope that you have a very blessed Tuesday. We'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, of course, for another program. We take in Republic Corner on Wednesday, so we do hope that you can join us for that. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.